Hello, everybody, and welcome to Full Focus, the cinema-based entertainment podcast where a couple of freelancers get together to talk shop. My name is Mike, and as always, I'm joined by my brother in crime, a man who can see all of the angles, a man who can take his bourgeois with a side of hoopla. He's the nicest guy I know, and handsome to boot. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Andrus.
I just need everybody to pause. I need everybody to stop exactly whatever they're doing. Like,
They're stopping.
Pull out
apparently.
your phones and do a selfie and post it to TikTok. Because I'm going to be doing that throughout the entire episode at random intervals.
Well, I mean,
and I'm not going to post them because it's just for me.
You're a trendsetter. I mean, that's pretty much what you have to do.
I'm an influencer.
You're a creator. It's what you.
I'm such an influencer. I would love to influence you to watch this movie and influence the people to invite me onto a cruise. That's all I want to.
I cannot believe.
I want to be influenced.
The audacity, sir, of throwing around your capabilities as a world famous Instagrammer is outstanding.
World famous? Nay. Galaxy at minimum.
I got you. We're going big here, baby. Oh my goodness.
How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks because I've been so stinking busy.
I know. Let's dive into that a little bit. As everybody knows, we do record these things out of order throughout the year and throughout the month and that kind of thing. It's currently April now, and things are, as to be expected, just chock full of man. The changes that I'm not the hugest fan of just talking about state government and that kind of thing, but Andrus, I think that maybe with some of the movements that were made last year and maybe some of the tax exemptions and that kind of stuff they're putting through, you would know better than I do. It seems that like Salt Lake, at least when it comes to like commercial, industrial, and also some movies and some TV coming through, it's become. It's getting recentered as being a place that has the capability of being able to provide those services for a lot of studios, especially if you're making a Western, apparently. That is...
Apparently, yeah, no, we're still rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
I'm currently casting in a variety of phases, 4 movies and 4 commercials right now.
Good Lord. Well,
yeah,
congratulations. I can tell you... Usually when we start this, you are a ray of sunshine, and I am so very happy that you're able to squeeze me in with like all the other stuff that you have to do. And the first thing that I see when we start talking after like dealing with some technical difficulties today that we got past pretty easily is you just taking up like the can of like Red Bull or whatever it is, and there it is, and then just sitting back in your chair and you're like, okay,
I'm ready.
Let's go. Just the momentum is carrying you on.
I also have a Gatorade in front of me.
I love it.
Yeah. I'm a connoisseur of beverages.
Of course. Oh, I'm very happy to have you, and I'm very happy that you're here and that we have the chance to talk to each other.
Thank you.
Especially about a film that everybody listening will soon find out does a great job of just harnessing the extremes. We're talking about a movie that deals with the class system, that deals with politics, that deals with fashion, beauty, love, that deals with the lies behind the sheets, and apparently the fact that if you wanted to, you'd be able to swim into a reef and have octopus for dinner when you're thinking about killing a donkey on an island.
I'm thinking about our documentary, My Octopus Friend.
Aww. That's on a previous episode. It's a very good one. But that being said, what was this chaotic tornado of class dynamic and extravagance brought down to just a bunch of individuals who were, provided without the shadow of a doubt that they were nothing but pretty much evolved apes on a yacht cruise? We're going to talk about Triangle of Sadness.
So, is this runway casting for a grumpy brand or a smiley brand?
So it's a grumpy brand, yeah?
Congratulations! Show me that Balenciaga look. Suddenly I'm dressed in something way less expensive. It's H&M! Yay! Balenciaga! And H&M! Balenciaga! And H&M!
you looks paid for the tickets. Not bad, huh?
So what do you do?
I sell shit.
The success of a luxury cruise mainly depends on you. I don't want to hear anybody saying no. It's always, yes, sir, yes, ma'am.
I command you, enjoy the moment.
No,
No?
no,
What? You say no to me?
no, no.
Oh, so it's yes.
Yeah, no.
Yes?
Go in.
Yes! The sails. Do you think it's possible to wash them?
I don't think that's possible, ma'am, because this is a motorized vessel.
Yeah.
So we don't have any sails.
It was sails. Yes.
Well, then, in that case, we will clean the sails. Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing
To love.
that there's
love.
just too little love.
A Russian capitalist. And an American communist.
On a $250 million luxury yacht.
The ship is going under.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just the song, but for everyone.
This is really bad. This is really, really bad.
And that was a trailer of Triangle Sadness. So, Andrus, let's jump into this. This was a movie that was produced and directed by, I'm going to destroy his name. I'm sorry, directed and written by Ruben Östlund, I believe that's his name. He has an umlaut over the O in his name, so I'm assuming
Östlund?
it's Östlund.
I don't know. I would pronounce it Östlund.
No. We find Ruben putting up this really lovely piece of art where we have numerous characters coming up, and it's made out of in three parts that are popping up in regards to the introduction of our hero, who later becomes not the hero. It ends up being like an ensemble kind of situation as we see it coming out like a 3-act play of sorts. The Triangle of Sadness is going to be one of these movies where it's not necessarily made for American audiences, but it is made for audiences that can understand the black satirical, black comedy, dark comedy kind of push that writers like Östlund and others have been able to pretty much master when it comes to not only the flow I think this movie has from these points of drama and these quiet moments to these ridiculous situations where we find the crew whilst on an island off of a yacht and then having to decide who's going to take a big rock and kill the donkey. Also, by the way, if you have not seen this movie.
Spoiler alerts. Spoiler alerts.
What are you listening to the podcast for? Watch the movie. It'll be worth your time. And then, when you're done watching it, go ahead and come back and listen to what we have to say and see if you agree or not, because we're going to spoil everything. So here we go. So Triangle Sadness, we're going to just go take a look from the synopsis popping up on IMDb and let you guys decide as to whether or not the movie did a good job of encapsulating all of this or vice versa. From the synopsis here, in Ruben Östlund's wickedly funny Palme d'Or winner, social hierarchy is turned upside down, revealing the tawdry relationship between power and beauty. Celebrity model couple Carl, played by Harris Dickinson, and Yaya, played by the now unfortunately departed Charlie Lee Dean, rest in peace, are invited on a luxury cruise for the uber-rich, helmed by an unhinged boat captain, played by Woody Harrelson. What first appeared Instagrammable ends... ends catastrophically, leaving the survivors stranded on a desert island and fighting for survival. Triangle Sadness was a 2022 internationally co-produced satirical black comedy written and directed by Ruben Östlund in his English language feature film debut. It stars Woody Harrelson, Harris Dickinson, Charlie Dean, so on and so forth. It had its world premiere at the 2022 Cannes Film Festival on May 21st in 2022, where it received an 8-minute standing ovation and won the Palme d'Or. Man, my French is terrible. The film received generally positive reviews, while De Leon's performance received international praise, garnering her first Golden Globe and BAFTA nominations for her supporting role. And we'll go through and check out the cast so you guys get familiar with everybody who's going through with this. We come in with this particular kind of movie not very often, but when we do, it is surprising to me, Andrus, how well it speaks to people and really does a good job of balancing subtlety and just obvious chaos that pops in regards to it. It also was, as Andrus reminded me, part of a series that we've been doing. But we're going through and checking this one as well because it was an Academy Award Best Picture nominee for this year, 2023. And I can see as to why it got nominated. We started out specifically, the act is really in partial with the way in which the entire script and plot is laid out. This movie comes up in 3 parts, much like a play. The first one entitled Carl and Yaya, the second part entitled The Yacht, and the third entitled The Island. And each of those titles is, in reference specifically to the subject matter they're in. We are introduced to Carl, who is played by Harris Dickinson. He is a fashion model. He is a model, one of these influencer. I apologize. Influencer who goes about and who is literally paid to take his shirt off and walk around and do that kind of thing for perfume, Calvin Klein, all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, he's fallen on hard times where he just came off of a very, very apparently very lucrative perfume contract, but now has to go back to auditioning.
Now he's too old at the tender age of 25.
At 25, he is too old, and he doesn't get the part. So instead of that, we do see how he is now being overshadowed by Yaya, played by Charlie Dean, and how Yaya is now this incredible this chimera, this mix of fashion model elite who also has an Instagram with 1 billion followers or something. And we see this little look into their relationship as to how Carl is refusing to give up the fact that he can't work in fashion anymore, and how Yaya is living it up, and how much it bothers him that she has the power to pay for dinner. We have these lovely scenes, honestly, and I think that Harris Dickinson and Charlie Dean do an incredible job of just playing up these subtle things that a power-hungry, rich couple who are so out to lunch that they don't really realize how good they have it or like they have it, and instead he feels shamed about these little things that pop up that Carl feels shamed about things that Yaya is doing, like saying that she can pay for dinner and do this and that and how she has to do here. And we come up to these really beautiful, intimate moments that pop up that I think Dickinson and Dean do very, very well when you can feel the tension that these two characters have, because neither of them are happy. They're actually both pretty miserable. And this is a theme that gets played out through the entire movie. We see all these other characters introduced that are very powerful and very rich, but ultimately hate their lives. And this is the first taste of that when we see this relationship beginning to crumble. But then Carl gets into an Uber. His Uber driver tells him, you know what? You got to fight for her. You got to have a fight. Otherwise, it's never going to be over. She's going to think she owns you, blah, 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 blah. All these misogynistic things that come up. The same cliched kind of romantic stuff that we see in like movies from like 2000s and that kind of thing. But he comes up and they make up and everything. And it's this lovely little vignette of how these two characters interact with each other, but how their selfishness and their narcissism ends up being their downfall, which we see towards the end of the movie. But the first act is actually pretty plain in that regard. Andrus, when we're dealing with like a movie here that has the capability of coming out and showing us these ridiculous scenes, like, the fight scene that Carl and Yaya are having, and then coming about and moving with like these absurd, we mentioned before we started recording, like these Monty Python adjacent kind of chaos-ridden parts that pop in. What are your feelings in regards to that when it comes to balancing? Because for me, when I think that the reason as to why they had to separate the 3 acts and make it so obvious to people that Act 1 is ending, Act 2 is starting, Act 2 is ending, Act 3 is starting, is because the balance behind the chaos that these people run into and the extraordinary situations with like the subtle, like dramatic notes that are prolific throughout the movie have a bit of a balancing problem. What did you feel as you were, beginning the triangle here and being introduced to these 2 main characters?
Well, I think if I'm gonna speak honestly from my viewing of it, it was definitely a balance issue for my interest.
Yeah.
Because the beginning wasn't super interesting to me. I was wondering where it was going to go. And if we weren't doing the podcast, I may have stopped.
You think so? That's interesting. Okay. Why? Why?
Maybe.
Because there's something you've seen before or something, or just wasn't
well, I mean, it's just like it feels like 3 very different movies. It feels like
that's
a movie
true.
in town. It feels like a movie on a yacht, and it feels like a survival movie.
Yeah, 100%.
So I mean, the 3 acts, how they're set up, I think they did that really well. And honestly, the draw of seeing a Woody Harrelson movie is what intrigued me in watching it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably would have made it to Woody Harrelson anyhow.
Yeah.
To see what he did, or I may have skipped ahead. I don't know. But as far as balance goes, I think that watching a young couple that is obviously not in love, but in relationship.
That's it. And they actually had that conversation, right?
Yeah, is kind of an interesting thing, especially based on the social financial dynamics that play out in the first thing that we're introduced to them as a couple. He I found it really funny. I found it incredibly humorous as far as his
he's such a child. He's really
the opening is a go-see for a modeling ad campaign.
Yeah.
Where everybody has their shirts off. We don't know where the story's going. They go through this ridiculous interview process to go into the actual audition,
right,
which is so ridiculous. But it's probably as accurate as can be.
It's a sick, sad world.
I don't remember the last model go-see I went on. So I can't tell you how the accuracy is of that.
I gotcha.
But as far as from the casting side of it, it was completely accurate.
Yeah.
Maybe not from my perspective as far as what I do with casting, but as far as what they need for their client and the needs of their client outweigh anything else.
So let me get this straight then. In your experience, you probably do more than just tell Carl to let me see how you walk or whatever.
Honestly. For a model go-see, they have the photos. They know how he photographs.
Yeah.
They know that he's photogenic.
Yeah.
They know that he's older than what his photos represent. They're in this horrible lit like conference room.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So I mean, it's just like that's not doing anybody any favors. But literally, they ask him to do a catwalk.
Yes,
right?
that's
so
it.
He does his catwalk back and forth, and then he gets schooled on how to do the new version of the catwalk, thinking about your favorite music. And then we're moving on from that scene. While we're talking about it, I don't know, but that's the setup for who this person is.
Yeah.
And understand that he's an insecure model human being.
Absolutely.
That may or may not have a brain attached to his body. We'll see. Right? I mean, there's such a stigma. I mean, Zoolander's a great, reference to stigma of what the male model intelligence level is.
100%. Yeah.
But then we're going to this dining fine dining scene with he and his yaya, who is way more interested in posting than having a conversation and way more interested in ignoring the bill than picking it up.
Even though she says it's not a big deal. It's this, we've seen this classic trope before. And the thing is that what I really did like about both their performances when it came to what Dickinson and Dean were doing was that Harris Dickinson has this it's not a
irritation.
Yeah. Like he looks like he's constantly constipated, but it looks like he's doing it on purpose. And I think Dickinson does a really great job of being able to portray what this egotistical, not as influential as he would like to be, model, actor, person, or whoever. He he just can't accept the fact that he got jobs because he's a beautiful person. And I think that what really kind of makes me a fan of what Dickinson is doing here is that I don't know if he is just a model that was pulled into this film, maybe, or if he is an actor by trade. But I think he did a really good job of being able to let us know how he was feeling with his resting bitch face.
He's an actor's actor. If you look at his credits, he's done more than just this. So,
well, he fooled me. He pulled off like this stoic, egotistical, poor me kind of situation with this characterization that I thought was ridiculously hilarious, because you can tell the tension between in that scene where Carl and Yaya, he doesn't want to pay, and neither does she, even though she has the money to. But the thing is that he's ashamed for not wanting to, and then he turns it to a bigger deal by saying, yeah, it's not for the money, or whatever it is. It was, I thought they did a really good job of being able to like have like that tension there, and then they're arguing over the most ridiculous crap. And of course, we come back with the whole thing about like the credit card not working and that kind of thing. I really do appreciate the idea of this going through the phase of we get introduced to these characters, we know in the first 50 minutes who they really are and how they're going to react to certain situations that are put up before them. And then at the end, we get like this little business agreement that they have where it's like, oh, they don't necessarily have to be together to be, to have it be a good business or something like that. And then I thought it was really sweet when Carl said like, I'm gonna make you fall in love with me. Besides like the ownership and the misogynistic tendencies behind that statement, but like you can tell that that Carl really cares about Yaya, I think, in a sense, if only to make it so that he seems less of a loser in like the fashion like empire's eyes or something like that, for lack of a better term.
So I have an opinion on all of this, and it may be something that I regret saying, or it may not be.
What? Never, please, come on.
But it's an opinion. I feel like they're the same person. They're just representations of each other.
That's absolutely cool. That's very cool.
I mean, for me, it's just like there's no real difference between who they are, because they're both unhappy.
Yeah,
they're
100%.
both complicit in the relationship woes and yays and whatever. They're basically the same person.
Yeah, you're right.
They're for themselves the entire movie.
Yeah, they're dating themselves the entire movie. Yeah. I think that's a really good way to look about it too, because like you do see that narcissistic tendencies, is an ongoing theme in regards to this whole situation. And I mean, my own personal politics aside, when we move from the first act, Carl and Yaya, to the second act, the yacht, we get that. Oh man, that's turned to an 11, where we see the rest of the supporting cast coming up. We have Paula, who's played by Vicky Berlin, who is the commandant, the lieutenant, the person who's in charge of, not the actual lieutenant of the ship, but the person who's in charge of all of the other helpers that are there to make sure that everybody gets serviced accordingly in regards to the yacht services. We have then also Woody Harrelson popping up as the captain. And if you need somebody to play a character who is going through terrible bouts of alcoholism,
an alcoholic burnout,
and just like making things hilarious despite that, is dude, he does such a good job at this. And he's only in the movie for like 10 or 15 minutes, but he just does a great job in portraying this character who has just given up and is just still trying to like maintain some sort of semblance of authority on his ship, not caring about really what the people want or need. He's just happy to still go into his room and just fall into his stupor. But with that, we do have a number of supporting casts that come about. We have like Zlatko Burek, who plays Dimitri. We have Sonny Mellis, who plays Vera. We have Oliver Ford Davies playing Winston, Henrik Dorson playing Jarmo, and Amanda Walker playing Clementine. We have all of these characters coming about, and they all share the same thing. They are all rich, powerful people who no longer have to worry about money anymore. But what we find out later through the circumstances that that ends up leading them into the island and all the debauchery and the Lord of Flies aesthetic that comes about through that. We found out that they're only human. But what they do, I think, a great job of, Andrus, is they make these snobs so snobby that, for me at least, I'm going back to like my original statement. it's hard not to see class politics in this movie. So that when you see these snobs, when you see the things that happen to them, I can't help but feel a little happy about it, which I know because, like, they're portraying human beings and that kind of thing. But when we do get to these points where we're introduced to these additional characters that are popping in the second act, at that point, it's very clear that it's not about Carl and Yaya anymore. It's about these groups of people. And what's interesting to me is how Carl and Yaya, even though they fit into the general, mental environment or whatever that these other characters are pushing up. They're elitist, exactly. Great. Thank you very much. That's absolutely right. They still have to be probably the poorest people on the boat, and they feel ostracized in regards to that, I think. So
I think that's a self-assessment for them. I don't think that they're exuding that because they're still kind of throwing their pretension in with everybody else. So.
I think it's like a hierarchy because like the same thing that we see in them when they get schooled a little bit when it comes to like, Dimitri, again, played by Zlatko Buric, being like the what do you say, the crap king or something of Norway or whatever it was? The shit king. He said shit king. Because his character is like he invested it in like a manure company or something and it just took off in the 80s or something and now he doesn't have to worry about money anymore. When they find out what real money, what real wealth is, it kind of like throws them for a loop. Especially again when we see Henrik Dorson and Jarmo coming up, and he asks, Yaya to take a picture of him just by himself. He was supposed to be there with a date or whatever, but he ends up like being able to woo them specifically because he offers to buy Yaya a Rolex because that's a service that they offer in the boat, apparently in the yacht. And it brings me back to like this whole hierarchy kind of situation where we have like the introduction of like, with Carl and Yaya, we have this introduction of, hey, this is what this movie thinks being a narcissistic, it's not a word, I guess, narcissistic idiot is. And this is the classism that we have being pushed through, and wait to see what happens to him. We also see this popping up where the need for that money and power is something that's wanted. It's something that's needed by people, and we see that mostly when it comes to Paula, who again was played by Vicky Berlin. The opening of the second act is with Paula and Alicia Erickson playing Alicia, going about and ramping up the support clients. I'm sorry for the word for it. The customer service agents, I guess, for lack of a better term, because they're in like the lobby and they're saying, "Hey, if you do,"
I would call them attendants.
Attendants,
maybe?
Yeah, sure. That's a great word. Man, you're picking it up where I'm putting it down here for real. But we have like that scene where like they're in the main lobby or the dining room or whatever, and Paula's trying to ramp them up, and like the biggest thing that she has to ramp them up with is, hey, if you do a good job, if you do everything these people do, if you do the deprived things that they ask, no is not an answer, you might get a big tip. We're all here to get some money, and everyone is like beginning to cheer, and they're saying money over and over again. What kind of hit you first when it came to like the hierarchy of characters here? I saw it right at the beginning when the second act was popping in because it made it so easy for us to see, okay, these are the people that want to be the rich people, these are the rich people who are miserable, and these are the people that are just here to enjoy the boat. They made that pretty easy to take, I think. But what were your feelings like when you're being introduced to the supporting cast? Was it like something that you've seen before, or did it excite you with the dynamic that we had, putting all of these different classes together in one confined place?
It was mostly just information still for me until we got to the captain's dinner.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So, I mean, I think the biggest dynamic that stands out is the fact that Carl is again insecure, sitting on a lounge chair,
100%. Oh, that's right. Yes,
with Yaya, posing for some photos. He's there to take her photos, and also probably the reverse. They're probably both
I think
sharing whatever they're doing, but it's mostly him with her.
Yeah, I think he's her assistant. I think that's what it's turned into.
Sure.
And he hates it.
I'm sure that dynamic is part of it. But a crew member decides to kind of show off his physique and take off his upper jumper section and wipe himself down from his sweat in front of the two, which offends Carl and his insecurities because Yaya found it attractive.
Yeah, exactly.
And he went and complained.
Yeah, he did. He went over to Paula and
Paula,
told her.
And in the flip side of that too ends up looking at the engagement rings that are available on the boat that he obviously can't afford.
Yeah, but he's going to look at them anyway because he wants to play at that fan.
And he's going to contemplate. Oh, that's a good price for that ring.
Thank you. Yeah, like he even knows.
That's a possibility, and all of the things. And of course, Paula uses the word like flawless. So I mean, there is a pretension to what happens, and ultimately the crew member gets tossed from the boat. He gets fired on the spot.
Yeah,
just because he took his shirt off that when it wasn't asked for that.
Exactly.
Because guess what happens later?
Right. So we carry on then, and as we're going through the second act, we get a better idea of Woody Harrelson, where he's at. We see some cool scenes where Woody Harrelson is acting on his own. He's apparently the character is having some conversations with maybe his daughter or his wife or somebody that he has back at home. He's talking about how he's not drinking and that kind of thing, where he really is. And it's just this absurd amount of this dereliction of responsibility. He just has nothing to do with the ship. He's just there to put on a suit. He knows it, but he's still there and he can't go anywhere. And we have Paula freaking out because she wants to have some sort of semblance of order and pushing things aside. On top of all of that, we have just the rich people coming about here, trying to do what rich people do, doing what rich people do. I don't want to generalize. Not all rich people are bad, but these particular characters definitely are. And when we see this coupling between Dmitri, played by Zlatko Burek, Vera, played by Sunny Mills, and Ludmila, played by Carolyn Jinning, we have our first introduction to the miserable rich that are here. Again, Dmitri being the shit king of Norway or whatever. He is great.
He's so charismatic.
He's a very charismatic.
I really appreciated what he did.
I like it that he was, he was political, and that he and Woody Harrelson got in a drunken fight that ended up sinking the ship. But that's our first look at. Yeah, that's our first look into like this whole dynamic, and we get introduced to all of these supporting cast, and that one portrayal of being people in power who are just sad because they have no idea what to do with all the power, and also making these different arguments in regards to how rich is too rich and wealth is meaningless and all this other stuff, but they're still what the other members on the ship want to be. I found to be a very interesting dynamic, because it wasn't just this whole situation. Ultimately, we have these small editings of people having those feelings, and then when we get to the scene after the dinner of Dmitri and the captain being locked in the intercom room, we see that actually come to fruition, about that actually being put into the exposition of what these class dynamics are being pushed through. And I do really enjoy the idea of having just these people who just do not have hearts anymore. They're just so very bored. They're terribly, terribly bored, and they just want to have fun, and they just want to do this and that like any other human being would want. But unfortunately, they've forgotten what that even means, because they've been rich for so long. And we see that, I think, mostly in the scene where Vera asks Alicia, what do you want with your life? What are you doing here and there, trying to help her in some way, which is not helping her at all. And then she says, you know what? Here's what I want. I want us to stop. I want us to put out the big slide on the side of the boat, and I want us all to have a good day and enjoy the slide or whatever, thing that she's doing something nice and making these orders to the crew that they have to obey. Unbeknownst to them, they are at the very ring of a storm center, and by stopping here, they actually have put everybody in horrible danger, not really understanding exactly what's going on. The captain could care less, and we have the scene come in where Paul is talking to him, saying that, we can't get the slide out, because if we do that, we're not going to have time for a proper captain's dinner, because we'll be in a low pressure system, which means, they're going to be under a tropical storm / small hurricane or something like that. And they should batten down the hatches and, bear with it and just not do what the rich people say. But of course, that would be against their code. That would be against what they taught. That would be against what being a member of their class is about. You must be subservient. You must do what the rich people say, because if you don't, they won't give you a big tip. And that's why you're doing everything anyway, isn't it? So we go into these scenes popping up where, you know, there's this faked fun by the rest of the crew, and only Paula really realizing what a bad decision this is. But Woody Harrelson, playing a captain who is agnostic when it comes to anything close to caring, says, you know, we'll do it anyway. Who cares? He really doesn't care about these rich people and their comfort. We're going to go ahead. And then we get to the climax of the film, the absolute climax of the film. I know I talked about a donkey being beaten to death in the third act, and that happens.
Well, that's just a moment.
That's just a moment. This is a symphony of just shame and upset stomachs and just warbling sound of. I can't. Let's talk about this, Andrus,
so
because
here's
this was
the thing, though. I mean, it's a folly of circumstances.
Absolutely.
And one is necessary for the other to happen. Right?
And like you mentioned it before we started recording, and I said it earlier, it reminded me of Monty Python, 100%. You hit the nail right on the head.
Well, because this rich person demands everybody go swimming because she's drunk.
Yes.
Like wasted on champagne drunk,
Yeah,
right? Like, no, let's switch roles.
Right.
So you tell me what to do, and then I serve you. So you get in the hot tub, you go swimming, you do this, right? So now everybody on the yacht that is crew is asked to go swimming. That includes the kitchen staff.
Yes.
And they even say something in that scene that says, the food's going to go bad if we leave it. Well, what the customer wants, the customer gets.
Right.
Go. So everybody's now up on deck and using the water slide into the ocean. They have a ball and fun time and all of that. Cut to what you just described into the dining hall where everybody meets the captain.
Right.
Which, again, one special nod in that scene was the dirty sails. Like
100%. 100%.
Like the dirt, yeah, the sails are dirty. I looked up and I saw the dirty sails. This boat doesn't have sails. Yeah, but it does on the flyer. And on the flyer, I saw the sails, but they're dirty. I looked up and I saw it. Okay, great. We're going to talk about that.
We'll get that taken care of
right
away. Please get the hell out of here, right? Please.
And then start food service. Everybody gets sick.
Everybody
that does not eat a cheeseburger, which is the captain's choice, gets sick.
And the fact that they're in the squall too, and like things are moving up and down and everything.
It's just so much fun because I loved how they did that because it felt so real. It felt like we were on the yacht. Did you get a little bit nauseous?
I did get a little bit nauseous. Like I was talking about this before, and like I had you know, my mom was here watching it with me, and I had friends over and that kind of thing, and we had just finished dinner, and I was watching this thing, and I began to get like, you know, the tunnel vision of like, you know, and I think it's something that happens to you when you get older, how much more life
susceptible you are to things.
Yeah, because I think life experience provides you a better picture of like what that might actually be feeling like. I've been on boats and I've been sick before on boats. Not to this degree. Like I took not my dopamine, but whatever drug you take in order to like, you know, get
I think it's Dramamine.
Dramamine,
right?
yeah. You take your little dosage of that and you stay hydrated. And for the most part, you know, you're fine. In my experience, not that I'm like a sailor or anything on that. I've been on a couple boats. But that being said, with the low lighting that they were definitely using the shadowing here. That was good to make us feel more claustrophobic. And when you see just the way the camera is moving up and down, back and forth, and then it zooms in with a steady shot, but the food is like Jell-O and it's still wobbling a little bit. Yeah. I mean, like these smart little things for cinematography that really made you feel. My face was getting hot, man. I was like, we mentioned before, if I was in a theater watching this and I just had finished like my tub of popcorn and I was sitting in a warm room, it was quiet, and I was just watching this kind of stuff, I'd be like, wow, I might have to go out and get some fresh air for a second.
I might go get some fresh air, yeah.
So this whole scene is great. It really makes it empathetic to what you know, the characters are going through, whether you like it or not.
But it's also just desserts too, in a sense.
So let's talk about that. Like, did you feel guilty about laughing your butt off when you saw these rich idiots just getting the crap kicked out of them by bad food and nature? I mean, my God.
Not at all. Not at all.
I was laughing.
I thought that it was definitely disgusting.
Yeah.
And it was definitely gag inducing or nausea inducing.
Sure.
But it was also incredibly funny. And I thought that they took care of those scenes brilliantly.
Yeah, I
with
agree.
the practical effects and maybe even some digital effects.
100%.
But I mean, like the fact that we have the lady that says it's Sunny, what's her name in the show?
Sonia Mills, I believe, who plays Vera.
Vera in the show.
Yeah.
So Vera's the one that instigated all of the party, everybody
Right.
goes swimming. And then it shows her eating her food.
Yeah.
And then she proceeds to vomit.
Yeah.
And then choke down whatever else she can with more booze. With more champagne. And then she proceeds to vomit again. And then I felt really bad for her in her cabin.
When she was in the cabin.
Because that was a really, really violent scene.
Yeah, 100%.
As far as bodily fluids everywhere and her trying to, amidst this squall, control her trajectory of her vomit.
So
and bowels.
I think the proper nomenclature is that there's I've had friends before that used to party pretty hard, and it was a situation where they not only had to go number 1 and number 2, they had to go number 3 and number 4, and it was like that whole chaos that pops up when you drink too much and you get sick. And Vera.
Well, and I think it's also food poisoning.
Oh, food poisoning,
100%. We saw people like on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So.
And the scenes where we see Vera being tossed back and forth like a rag doll, and all she wants to do is grab the toilets and just like empty out, and hopefully find an end to this hell she's going through. Very powerful scenes, and we got to hand it over to Miss Mills for just playing the character incredibly, and that's why she got.
And if they didn't do stunts with her, she pulled it off amazingly well. I would have to imagine that was stunts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she got a lot of credit. I mean, like we mentioned before, she did get a BAFTA and a Golden Globe nod in regards to that performance, and I think it's well earned. Yeah. We also found some situations popping up the ship where after the dinner comes about, and unfortunately the sewer system in the ship goes haywire and starts spilling stuff all over the place on top of everything else.
Yeah.
We see then that the captain and Dimitri get into an argument about politics, and they start rambling off capitalistic versus Marxist views
on the intercom. After a drinking game.
After a drinking game, yeah. They are
so they're
sloshed.
Both wasted.
Absolutely, which makes it even better. And then we see, the second mate, Darius, played by Arvin Kananian, and going right back to Paula with Vicky Berlin, trying to break into the office and trying to figure out how they can keep them to stop talking because they're not making things any better.
Well, they're talking over the PA system for the entire
night, the entire yacht to hear, and everybody's doing everything. And the PA system, because it's echoing out and doing kinds of things, the last part that we see of the scene is an over-the-shoulder shot of pirates. And we're not talking about pirates in Peter Pan or whatever with scabbards and wooden legs. We mean real pirates that go on boats, carry some AK-47s, and rob people blind. There are a couple of movies in regards to that about the belts around Somalia that had been dealing with that problem for decades. And still,
this part was one of my favorite irony moments in the show, because the older couple that
invented the hand grenade,
invented the hand grenade, or at least sold.
You're talking about Winston and Clementine, who are played by the very capable and very well known in acting circles, Oliver Ford Davies and Amanda Walker, this comedic scene where in before when they're at the captain's dinner and they are sat across Carl and Yaya, they're talking about our family, we invented we've been protecting democracy since 1916.
They're arms dealers.
They're arms dealers, but they're legal arms dealers. They're Lockheed Martin, pretty much. And then you see before the third act ends, that grenade come up, and Clementine looks down and she says, "Oh, Winston." She picks it up. "This looks familiar," and then they just blow up out of nowhere.
It was a really comedic moment.
It was great
me, how they did that, because I would have been a little bit horrified if we stayed in proximity to that explosion.
100%.
But since we pulled back to watch,
to introduce the pirates,
poof,
the little poof on the side of the yacht.
It's just a little poof explosion. It was so funny, but tragic.
Because it sunk the ship.
Because now we know where that's headed, and that little poof explosion preceded a much bigger explosion that sunk the yacht. So,
and that's at the end of the second act, and we get brought on to the third act, the island, which is in it's not the climax anymore in regards to how the movie is flowing, but it does give a really good, how can I put this? The third act, the island, I think, is a way of the movie or the creators of the movie going back and saying, okay, in case you didn't realize what we were trying to say with the first two acts, we're going to introduce this.
Let's shove it down your throat.
Exactly. Really hardcore.
Yeah.
But we're going to do it with lots of laughs and decent points of drama so that, it stays with the theme and you guys can still enjoy the movie. And I think that this was done really, really well because we talk about how these rich people haven't the slightest idea of what the hell they're doing. They end up on the beach. They don't even know enough to try and get under the trees when things start raining and try and get shelter. And they are scavenging for a brief moment from the garbage and detritus that is coming from the shipwreck. And this is where we get our first real dramatic points of the scenes that pop up, especially I think when we see when we see how Dimitri finds Vera's body.
Vera, right? That was such a wonderfully tender moment.
It was so beautiful. It
but
was beautiful.
Also disgusting at the same time because
say it.
as he's mourning his wife and bride of how many years.
Yeah.
He's also stripping her of her jewels. So, and I mean, there was such a contrary element to what that was. It was fascinating to me that I got all of the emotional presence that I needed to get from Dimitri for what he's doing.
And at the very end, he starts taking off her necklace.
He's balancing her head to his while he's freeing both of his hands to unclasp this diamond.
Yeah.
It was so disgusting and so sweet at the same time. I was really conflicted about that.
And that's the whole spirit of the movie, though, right? It's it's talking about they're still human, but they're still terrible.
But it also went full circle with Carl too, with the perfume.
100%.
It was so funny.
He finds a bottle of the perfume that he didn't add for.
Notice,
yeah.
Went full circle with Yaya's gluten intolerance and her shoving pretzels
down her throat. Yeah, exactly. I love the idea that we have this way of just tearing these masks off and having these rich individuals now be thrown into a place where their money doesn't mean anything. They're on a deserted island. They don't need, jewels and perfume and contracts and boats. They need food, water, and shelter. And that's when we have the great pleasure of meeting Dali de Leon, who plays Abigail. And Abigail then becomes the main character of the movie. She is how can I put this? She is a step below the customer service, the attendants.
She's a member of the yacht crew.
She's a member of the yacht crew, right? But she's also a janitor.
She's the custodial manager.
Custodial manager. She washes the toilets and makes sure the garbage is taken out, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
which isn't
kind of interesting that they have the shit king and the shit manager.
Absolutely.
Right? Sorry, I had to.
But unlike all these rich people, Abigail did what she's supposed. A decently intelligent person who's trained to work on a ship knows what to do. She got in a lifeboat, and she not only did that, but she was able to bring water and supplies with her so that she'd be able to survive for longer than 5 minutes. Of course, those supplies and everything are taken by the greedy, narcissistical capitalists. And then Abigail is found to be in the same, for lack of a better term, pardon the pun, the same ship as everybody else. And they begin getting hungry and dealing with, the heat and the starvation and everything once more. But luckily, Abigail, being a native to these islands in this particular part of the world, she knows how to fish, she knows how to camp, she knows how to start a fire, she knows how to do all this. And my second favorite scene is the dining room scene because I really do enjoy what we're talking about, how it did make you feel claustrophobic and how it really had this outlandish chaos that was being pushed about, and it was humorous and it was also awful at the same time. My favorite scene is when we're at the campfire and Paula is trying to assert her authority and Abigail is not having any part of it whatsoever. Abigail went out earlier in the day.
And
justifiably so. She went out earlier in the day and she got food for everybody through her fishing skills. And when she's divvying up the food, she says, 1 for you, 2 for me. 1 for you, 2
1
for
for
me.
you, 1 for me.
Ah, that's right. You're right.
It's one for you, one for me, all the way down the line.
All the way down the
But
line.
it's one for the group, one for
me. Exactly.
One for the group, one for me.
You got it. You got it. And they get a little ticked off about it. To which Abigail, replies, "Well, did you get the fish? Did you make the fire? No. One for you, one for me." And the way in which you can see all of these actors do the perfect what the F face as they play these rich characters who now have to bend down to the to the shit queen is priceless. And I love it because at a certain point, I think like somewhere in the second act, I stopped feeling sorry for these people. And that is by design, I think. So seeing them actually having to deal with the idea of being regular human beings once more and not these gods that are lofted upon a throne made of gold, really, really gave me the satisfying feeling. And what made me what made things interesting is that human nature kicks in and Abigail begins to get used to that power. And then she becomes the thing that she was originally hating. She begins to take up these attitudes as being the food giver, the mother of the group, this matriarch.
Well, and she also claims her power in a very, very transactional way as well.
Right. Not only through food, but also through sexual favors with Carl.
Right. She establishes her alpha dominance on the group completely.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that when the scene pops in where they know that she has more food and Dimitri comes in, he's like, "Look, a Rolex, $32,000. It's all yours if you something.
Just let me spend the night inside shelter."
That's what it was. Yeah, inside shelter. And she's like, "No." it tickled my funny bone a lot. But what happens with the third act, we definitely get into the play when it comes to the Lord of the Flies kind of situation. Because of course, when you have one person who is ruling with all power in that kind of situation, you're going to have people who disagree. And Abigail is not the kind of matriarch that is one to take her power lightly. She's a dictator at the very least. And when we do see things coming about from Yaya, beginning to ask questions as to why can't we why do we have to live like this, why do we have to listen to you, maybe she could learn how to fish, that kind of thing. And also we find out that during this time she actually gets to be jealous of Abigail because Abigail has been able to take Carl's Carl doesn't have a heart, but he's willing to deal with transactions, and if he's able to get some extra food here and there that Abigail can provide, then he's...
Well, it was a complete negotiation, and it's an interesting...
Yeah, it's a business proposition.
Interesting counter between Yaya and Carl from their first conversation
100%.
over dinner.
Yeah.
Compared to what this survival conversation is in relation to their relationship surviving this as well.
But it's still a transaction, and it's carried out that way, and it's specifically doing that because, to your point, we find out for sure that Carl never loved Yaya at all, but very much so Yaya may have began to have feelings for him because she began to throw out some jealousy a bit. But later on, we do see that Yaya seems to be okay with Carl holding hands or something with Abigail as long as she gets her pretzels and gets more food in that regard. It's all like this very loveless, soulless relationship, but they come to realize that in order to survive, they realize that they're not cut out for this life at all. How they don't have the teeth, they don't have the trauma or the anything to help them survive, and so everybody has to lean hard on Abigail and do what she says. Even the kings and queens who in the real world were multi-billionaires, but here they're no better than anybody else. And I really love that juxtaposition, and I love seeing how these characters, which I didn't like, actually pull into my psychology and actually get really made fools of. But still hope and still, though, after all that, they just don't realize how given the situation, how little power they have, and them coming to grips with that is hilarious and very well done. But of course, like after we get that initial thing taken care of in the third act, the movie comes closer and closer to its ending, and with that comes, you know, some understanding. We do see Jarmo coming about and killing a donkey in the island that people thought was a monster because it was hee-hawing at night. And for a brief moment, he's a hero, and he's admonished by the crew, and that's great because in his real life he wasn't. He was just a rich slug who didn't have any self-confidence and that kind of thing, and that was fine.
Well, and can we also talk about the fact that it is a donkey?
Yeah.
On a deserted island?
Exactly.
I mean, nobody had any foresight into that in the show whatsoever.
Because all they cared about was making money and looking good for Instagram. Ridiculous. It was so stupid. That's the thing too. Like it kind of like brings up the argument, right? Like, how are these dummies so capable of being able to be so powerful with capitalistic capabilities? And I think that is like one of the main messages of this. Like, we're all the same when it comes to, you know, brass tacks, and it's only through the advantages that people get through privilege and luck and position that really give anybody any power outside of, like, you know, the natural world. And I know that's a loaded term, but whatever that might mean. Because we have here how Abigail's, who has, you know, a certain set of skills, and she's able to, you know, gain power in this group, and everybody else has to follow because they have no idea what to do besides balancing checkbooks and making money, which can be a good skill. I'm not saying it isn't, but in this particular point of view, at the very least, they could have learned not to be, I don't know, so stupid. But that's part of it. You're not supposed to like these characters. You might be able to feel sorry for them, and when they have real successes, and successes being able to accept themselves as being human, being able to maybe have some empathy for people, poor people, you do see that coming about, and that's refreshing. But the number one theme in this is that look at these classist people, look how far they've fallen, and here's your permission to laugh at them and understand, like, in ways it's okay to laugh at people who just have no idea what they're doing and their heads are so far up their butts, they need help. And they can't get it unless it's somebody who knows how to fish. But as we see the story beginning to wind down, we do see things beginning to calm out a bit, and the drama comes back into the movie a while, because we see Dimitri coming about, and he's being a bit of a friend to everybody. He's helping them do this and that. He's getting a shave from one of the other crew members who was probably a pirate that got caught in the shipwreck. And he gets a shave from him, and they end up being friends.
I would imagine the answer is yes.
Yes. We see Jarmo and Dimitri and other members of the other crew actually start treating each other like human beings and not like investments. They're sitting down, they're hunting together, they're repairing things together, they're lounging on the shore together.
Yeah, there's the tribal affiliation.
The tribal affiliation and camaraderie
with what happens amongst them, and there's still, of course, some jealousy happening
100%.
Back and forth with the youngsters.
Yeah,
but it was an interesting commentary for sure.
I think when we get to, I believe the character's name was Teresa. She was the character.
Are we talking about Endervoken?
Yes, absolutely.
Endervoken. I had that prepped and ready to send you.
Endervoken. Thank you. She was a character Iris. That's
Iris
it. Thank
Urban. You. Her character name was Teresa.
First of all, she did an incredible job. Secondly, Teresa was a character who she's recently suffered a stroke. Super rich billionaire, but has problems communicating everything. We can
so she can understand everybody, but she can't communicate only say Endervoken, Yuli. That's her only. Her only verbal.
But we do see her as like being the portrayal of like some bit of humanity here, because she's the only rich person that you can actually feel sorry for because of the circumstance that happened to her.
And she survived.
And towards the end of the movie, we begin to see, and this goes back to, like, you know, what you're talking about, the donkey and everything. The island may not be exactly what it seems. We see Teresa standing, laying down in one of the rafts, one of the rescue rafts, the safety rafts or whatever. Her home, right.
Yeah.
And somebody comes by, a native comes by, selling necklaces and cell phones. And I don't know if any of our listeners have been to, places like Laguna Beach, if you've been on, going down.
It's just knockoff merchandise.
But like, if you go to certain beaches around the U.S. and even like you've gone to like South America and stuff like that, people are making trade. They're going down, walking up and down the beaches, going like, hey, do you want a Coke? Do you want some ice water? Do you want a mango? Do you want this and that? Happens all over the world. And that happens here. And this beautiful scene where Therese can't talk to this person and say, please help me. We've been stranded for weeks. We have no idea what's going on. The guy who's selling stuff thinks she's trying to make a pass at him. And immediately he's like, whoa. No, sorry. I don't play that game.
She grabs his hand and she keeps saying, in the clouds.
In the clouds. It's so absurd. It's great. It's so absurd. But that's the first clue that we get as to popping in. At the same time, prior in that scene, Abigail and Yaya are going about and they're going to start looking around for places for a shelter and that kind of thing. What we find is that this place isn't an island. It's a resort. It's a big resort for more rich people. And Yaya has found an actual elevator going up to a suite where they might be able to find a phone and call and do whatever they have to in order to get some help and some medical care.
Get the rescue mission underway for 100%. The other side of the island.
And the best thing that I saw here was like this very creepy scene that made the most sense in the world, where we have this back shot of Yaya looking off into the waves, and she's speaking to Abigail, and she says, Abigail, I could help you. When we get out of here, I could hire you and you could work for me. You could be my assistant or something. And then you see the camera turn right back and you see Abigail say, oh, and she picks up a big rock with tears coming down her eyes because of what she knows she's going to have to do. And then the movie ends with a scene of Carl not possibly figuring out what's going on, and he's trying to run to save Yaya, but we never find out if he gets there in time.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you think?
I totally interpreted that scene differently.
Oh, what was it? What did you think?
Okay.
Am I giving him too much credit?
So, no. I think that that's a valid interpretation of it.
Okay.
But where I went is, absolutely, Abigail bludgeoned.
Oh, Yaya to death.
The donkey was
absolutely. Yaya became the donkey.
Probably missed the first time, and she had to do it over and over again the next few hundred times. Right?
Can we before you go any further? There was that scene with Jarmo and Dimitri and the gentleman who played the pirates. I have to look them up here and see what's going on.
I had it up on my screen and now I don't.
But like they killed the donkey, Nelson, played by Jean-Christophe Folly. They hug each other and they start crying like little boys, but they did it because
they made their first kill.
They made their first kill.
They were men.
It was ridiculously
they went back to
crazy.
Hunters
but to really like. I was surprised how I wasn't bothered by that scene because it was so ridiculous. The noises that the donkey made, it was awful. It was awful, but it was also ridiculous. It was so ridiculous. But anyway, your interpretation of the scene.
So what I think happened is absolutely because Abigail does not want to give up her power.
No.
She likes being the queen. She likes being the head honcho.
She doesn't want to go back to washing toilets.
She doesn't want to go back to her previous job or anything therein because she now has power and she has authority. I interpreted the very last scene instead of. I mean, he looked like he was being chased.
You think so?
So I don't think that he was on his way to do anything heroic because if you look at who he is, he's anything but heroic.
That's true.
I do not think that he is running to save. I think he's running from. And I'm not sure what he's running from other than the fact that maybe everybody turned on him in the camp for him being the sex slave to Abigail that he was. Or what. But for me, it didn't make any sense as to why it cut to there. I would have just loved seeing that last image of Abigail.
Yes.
And ending the movie there.
100%.
It was a little bit confusing to me why we went back to Carl running and getting torn up by all of the foliage.
Yeah.
But but I mean, it was how they ended it, and that's fine. It's up to interpretation.
Yeah.
Is that supposed to be us running away from social norms, or is it supposed to be us challenging to what I don't know what that commentary is supposed to be.
I understand. I think that it's good that at the very least you have questions and it's making you think.
Yeah,
a bit,
for me it didn't matter because like the Abigail scene did it for me. I'm like, and cut to black, we're done.
Yeah, 100%. And with that, maybe we should cut to black with the episode too, because we're getting close to the end of it here. Let's jump in a bit when it comes to like specializations. I would like to go first actually and just talk about
how dare you.
How awesome. I would like to talk about how important sound was in this movie. And it wasn't like in regards to like, a stunning soundtrack that was, pumping with action here or there. It was because this particular OST, this particular sound bed, the way in which, the mastering was pushed forth with certain sounds popping up more than others was a masterclass in subtlety. And the way in which that really came through was absolutely in the dining room scene.
Okay, I was wondering if it was going to be the dining room or if it was going to be all of the little things leading up to the
100%.
dining room.
I think that like when you go through, the dining room is actually, from a sound designer's perspective, ridiculously complicated and very dynamic. It's because you have all of the Foley that could be pushed through with all the dynamic things that are happening with the ship. The actual set itself is moving. The movement itself for the boat has to have a sound. The boat has to have a sound, the weather and all that other stuff. And that can be pretty, cut and dry. We've seen things like that happen before in millions of other movies, and it's easy to take certain inspirations from those and put them on. But what really kind of got my attention was the way in which the food sounded. Every time that you saw somebody dig in with a fork or cut with a knife or see like the wobble of the gelatin, like caviar or whatever that popped up, there were these minuscule little touches that popped up. And they also played with that in the perspective of who was looking at the food as well. It's a very simple kind of technique that pops up when you have like a certain sound, and then like you take the high end or the mid EQ out of a sound or a piece of Foley, and it sounds really close up like this or something like that.
Sure.
And it gives us the same kind of sound that you get if you would plug your ears and still listen to music or something like that. And that is a way in which I found a couple of times in relation to the ship's sound, the weather sound, the glasses sound, the gurgling of people's stomach sounds and everything, how it really captured the room and captured the movement. And the subtlety that was mastered, I think, in that regard, made the scene that much more powerful. If you saw this scene without the little intricacies of Foley that were put in, I think you'd be fine. But with that added to it in the way that it was, it makes it claustrophobic, it makes it vomitous, it makes it gross, and also, the most important thing, it makes you as an audience member, it makes it easier on you to either gain empathy for what these characters are going through or gain joy at their comeuppance, because it makes it that much more impactful. And that scene was hard to watch. But if you go in and if you watch this movie, and if you're coming from a background where you want to try and guess where they got that sound effect from or anything like that, which is what I do sometimes, like the Wilhelm scream, you guys know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. Watch the scene again and listen to the intricacies of how each fork sounds different, how they didn't use one sound for all the glass clinks, and how the boat and the actual gravity of the waves and everything have movement to them, even if it's just a low hertz rumble or something like that. I found that very refreshing. Everything else seemed kind of general, but that whole scene, which was a long scene, that kind of made the movie for me from a technical perspective.
And you also have the added effect of a crying child.
So great. And adding more tension, it's so great.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a build up to something big happening, some large event happening in this, but
100%.
It was so well done. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
What about when it comes to casting? Is this a different movie if you put different people in it, or what are your feelings about how this
no, it is.
Up?
I think it's a very different movie if you're going with star power on this. I love the fact that it had a star in it to bring in outsiders that wouldn't normally see this movie, because I think this was a really fun one for people to watch.
Yeah.
In so many different ways.
Ways.
But there really wasn't a whole lot of star power as far as the US market goes.
Right.
It's very much an international cast. I think that Woody, Woody's a very, very strong actor and a very likable actor. I think that a lot of people who enjoy his work would want to go see anything that he's in. So I think that that's a great nod to him. And just discovering some of these actors that we've seen in movies past, and if you've seen any of the current movies with Carl, who did a really great job in this. I just closed out my screen, so I can't remember. Hendrix. He's done quite a few things recently.
Yeah, Harris Dickinson.
I mean, you might be able to see him in things recently and make that comparison.
Yeah.
It was mostly an undiscovered cast for me, which I just appreciated, because it takes me out of the idea of, oh, they're doing a terrific performance, and I could just watch them be the people that they're portraying on screen, which I thought was beautifully cast.
That's got to be that really was a great group being pushed through, and a diverse cast as well. That was just pushing talent more than anything else. And I think I didn't realize this before we started recording, but it is important, I think, anyway, because I did enjoy the movie, and I really did enjoy her performance as Yaya. Unfortunately, Charlie B. Dean unfortunately passed away last year, and she was just 32. Unexpectedly died shortly after the film's release from sepsis, unfortunately, which was caused by a bacterial infection that she had. And earlier in her childhood, she had lost her spleen, and unfortunately, she didn't have the capabilities to fight against it, and she passed away.
That was something that I was interested in finding out, as if the scar that was portrayed on her was for character or something that she just embraced as the human being that she was, and that's really super sad.
That is really sad. She was very talented, but I'm really happy that at the very least we have a good piece of art to remember her by, to be completely honest.
And I'll tell you, this movie made me a fan of hers, and made me a fan of Dolly De Leon. It made me a fan of Zatko Björk. I mean, he was so good. Charming.
He was really charming.
That's who he was. And honestly, if any of them make another movie, I'll probably watch it. So.
I agree. So we appreciate you guys taking some time to listen to us. And if you like dark, satirical dramas, give Triangle of Sadness a try. I definitely enjoyed it. Andrus enjoyed it. And not just for the technical perspective, but also because it is a great piece of storytelling that really reflects on some things when it comes to class infrastructure and some pretty serious topics like love and narcissism and just stupidity.
Stupidity.
Anyway, regardless of what you think, we do appreciate the fact that you took time out of your day to listen to us. Remember, regardless of what we say, what we do, the movies that we watch, and the opinions we put up, we may be wrong, but it's your job to tell us. Andrus, as always, thank you so much, especially during this time of year. I know you're so damn busy, and you still take time out to talk to me and shoot the jive, and just we love this stuff. I'm glad somebody to share it with. I'm glad that's you. So thank you very much once more, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Everybody else, feel free to like and subscribe on YouTube if you like what we're doing. Follow us on SoundCloud. Email us, pullfocuspod@gmail.com. We've gone through most of the Oscar nominations for this year, and if there's other things that you think that we should be paying attention to, by all means, let us know. But in the meantime, I do really appreciate everybody coming by, giving us your time, listening to what we have to say, and letting us know what you think. And we will see you next time. Be good to one another. Take care of yourselves. And don't go on any yachts. They're overrated. They're very overrated. Okay.
Unless it's free.
Unless it's free.
Post your followers.
Oh my God, not even then. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.